Hello, everybody. It is Note. I am here to do another tutorial video. The last one I did was from a million years ago. I mean, like, a few years ago. How I explained how I use amiibo cards to trade villagers. And today, I'm going to explain my method that I use all the time to get really good turnip spikes. And I have been doing this for almost as long as the game has come out. Well, start when I started time traveling in this game in particular. I wasn't really much of a stock market person before New Horizons, so this is how I figured out with this game specifically how to manipulate using time travel the stock market and how to get a really good turnip spike for yourself or for others. And I would definitely recommend doing this if you perhaps have an extra switch or if you have friends that have turnips they need to sell and you need to do something like really fast to get them a good price, or you just want to team up with a friend, have them set up an island where they buy for really low and then you can sell for really high on your own island. And you can also use turnip exchange to invite people over to your island to sell. But this is how I use time travel to manipulate the turnip market to get really good prices. So the first thing you want to do is find yourself a turnip price calculator. There's a few good ones out there. Turnip Profit is very good. I will link the one I use in the description and a couple others, but you can just Google turnip price calculator ACNH or Animal Crossing New Horizons, whatever. They'll pop up pretty easily. And the way that it calculates things is you have to record your prices uh, in the AM and the PM. So, how the stock market works essentially is there are different patterns that your turnip prices can take. And turnip price calculators will include the buy price, but that's only relevant if you want to know how big of a spike it could possibly be. So if you don't really care, like, if it's up to the full amount or whatever, doesn't matter really if you skip the buy price from Daisy May on Sunday. But it is helpful if you want to get as big of a profit as you possibly can. I have gotten up to like 650 something once, and that was insane because the maximum selling price for turnips you can get is 660 bells per turnip. And keep in mind that you buy them in stacks of 10. A full pocket full, if you have all of the pocket upgrades, is 4,000 turnips. So that's like over 2 million bells, which is crazy. There's also different calculations for buying prices, etc. But first, we're going to get into how I check and manipulate the market. Okay, so it is currently Friday PM in this game. The reason I'm at Friday PM currently is because I know for sure that yesterday was a large spike price. So that means a couple things. If you've already had a large spike and you missed the price, the best thing to do instead of going to the next week is to just go back to the previous month or time travel back a week, because that will reset the pattern that's going on. If you have a large spike week and you miss it, the next week is most likely to be decreasing. And there are four types of weeks that you can get. You can either get decreasing, which means the prices will go down every time, and it'll end with the lowest price possible for that week. The second time you can get is fluctuating, which means the prices will wildly vary. It'll go upwards of 200 and low down to 60, so it's pretty much a week you don't want to get if you're resetting for spikes. Then you can get a small spike or a large spike. Obviously you want the large spike because that can go up to 660 bells, but that depends on your Daisy May buy price. So if you buy for 90 bells, you're going to get a lower profit. If you sell for the full 100, buy for the 110 price, you're going to get up to 660. And even then it is a very low percentage chance of you getting the full price. So generally, since I do this a lot, I don't really care if a large spike is under 500 bells, because I know I can get better than that pretty easily. So if you want to, you can settle for like 450 or whatever, but generally speaking, I settle for anything over 500 bells. The spike yesterday in the PM was 550, I believe, something like that. So that was worth going for. But if it's under 500, I don't tend to really care enough if you really want a good price. But again, I am crazy and I do this a lot. So, since this week was a big spike week, there's no reason to go to the next week. It's most likely going to be either decreasing or fluctuating. If it's decreasing, that's fine, because the week after that is most likely to be the large spike. But if you get stuck with fluctuating, you get trapped in a fluctuating week, then small spike week, then fluctuating week, and that's not what we want. So in this case, since I already had a big spike week this week, I'm going to save, and we're going to travel back to the beginning of January. And thankfully this year, January starts on a Monday, and if you don't really care about the buy price of the turnips, that's not a price you really need to get. So we're going to travel back to January 1st. If you don't know how to time travel, you go into your system settings, you're going to go bottom to the system section, and then you're going to go to date and time. My clock isn't synchronized with the internet at the moment. When I'm recording this, it's February 1st. So we're going to go to January 1st at 11:31 a.m. And the reason I do 11 instead of earlier is because it's easier to time travel to noon, because you want to get both of those prices. Alright, so whenever you start on a new week and you go backwards, if your price calculator asks about the last week's pattern, you're just going to put unknown or no pattern known. And now that we're on Monday and the AM, we're going to check that first price. Okay, since we don't know our buy price on Sunday, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to go straight to the Monday AM price and ask Timmy and Tommy here what the turnip price is in the morning. Okay, so first thing, when you get a price of 103 on your first day, that is definitely going to be fluctuating. When I put that into my calculator, it showed it as 89% fluctuating, 11% small spike. So there's a very small chance that it's going to be a small spike, and a very large chance it's going to be fluctuating. So in this case, I wouldn't bother with this, and I'm going to save and quit and go to a different week. If you go forward a week, it's going to be based on the pattern of this week, but I'm going to go several weeks ahead and reset the pattern. So the next Monday I'm going to go to isn't going to be the next Monday after that. I'm going to go to the Monday of the week that I'm currently in. If you're time traveling around, like you have an island that you have set in June, in this case, I would go 2 weeks ahead, because that will kind of make the pattern different. Because in this case, if it's fluctuating, it's probably going to be small spike the next week, fluctuating the next week, and it gets stuck in a kind of loop. So in this case, I'm going to go to January 29th instead. So in this case, if it's mostly going to be fluctuating or a small spike, I would time travel more ahead, or maybe even further backwards to reset the spike patterns. If it's a large spike week, like your calculator says it's going to be most likely a large spike week or a decreasing week, go for it. That is a good sign. If the price starts at 90 bells, like 95, 93, something in that range, that's a good sign it could be a large spike week. But if it starts with over 99, like 103, that is not a good sign. In my case, I'm going to be going to the 29th at 11:36 a.m. And the reason I do 36 after is I keep it to the same as real time, so I have a better reference of when the spike will end if we get a spike. And I will see you when we get back for that first price. Now that we're at Monday AM again, we're going to reset our Turnip's price calculator and set it to the unknown pattern for the previous week, because we've reset our price from the previous week and it's a new unknown pattern. Let's check the price to see what it's at. Okay, this is what we want. A starting price in the 90 bells range is a good sign for a large spike week or a decreasing week. If your price starts in the 60s of bells or over 100 bells, you'll need to time travel backwards or forward several weeks to reset your pattern. If you have a small spike week, the next week will most likely be a fluctuating week, which would lead to another small spike week and could turn into a small spike and fluctuating loop. That's when you should time travel to reset your pattern. However, if you start with a price like 93, it could lead to a large spike week or a decreasing week. Either of those are good to get. The reason being, after a decreasing week, you're most likely to get a large spike the following week. So if your prices start off in the 90s on Monday AM, get all of the prices for that week. And now we'll go to noon and see the next price. Okay, so we're at 88 bells for our second price, which means that we're still at 45% chance of getting a large spike. So in this case, I'm going to continue on and get more prices until we're closer to seeing if this is a large spike week or not. So I'm going to time travel and get those prices, and I will meet you guys back when we are closer to getting to that spike price. Okay, so a price of 148 bells after the previous prices is a very good sign. So how large spikes work is once you get the couple of prices that decrease by a little bit and you have a sudden one going up, that usually means it's going to be a spike week. Now if we pull up our calculator here, we can see that we are now at 54% likely to have a large spike, which is really good. 20%, 23% each for fluctuating small spike, but most likely it's a large spike. And then if we look at our graph over here, we can see that all possible prices say they could either be Tuesday PM or Wednesday AM for the highest price. Usually it's one day, so like one price suddenly jumps up, and then the second one after jumps up a little further, and then the third one is the highest spike, but sometimes it only jumps up twice. So in this case, we're going to time travel to Tuesday PM and see if we get the right price. And if we don't, we can time travel again to Wednesday AM. And if it is an AM price, I would recommend using the ordinance system and use the early bird ordinance, so you have an extra hour to have Nook's Cranny open a little bit earlier. So if you use the early bird ordinance, it opens at 7 AM instead of 8 AM, so you have a little more time to sell your turnips until noon. And vice versa, if you have a PM spike, you use the night owl ordinance to keep it open until 11 PM instead of 10 PM, so you have another hour to sell your turnips in that way also. So that's my tip for you, is to take advantage of changing the ordinances uh, just to give you some more time to sell turnips. Alright, I'll see you back when we get the next prices. Okay, so 153 means we're at 42% chance of a large spike, which is still really good, and that also means that it's most likely going to be on Wednesday AM. And I have a trick to help out with that, because AM selling is a lot less than PM selling, because you can only sell from 8 AM to noon, but if you use your early bird ordinance, you can sell from 7 AM to noon, so you have one more hour to sell. So we're going to be going to resident services and get that early bird ordinance in effect, so we have some more time to sell our turnips. Okay, so now that we have that price settled, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can change your ordinance. I especially recommend it if you have an AM spike. Also, I don't use Tender Islands. All of that savings balance is from turnip spikes, so you can tell I've done this a lot. I believe turnips, to change your ordinance, it's 20,000 bells, but I got some extra anyway, just in case. Also, I'm going to ignore Whitney thinking, because that's totally not happening right now. Okay, so what you're going to do to change your ordinance is you're going to go talk to Isabel. And then you're going to go to review island features. And then you're going to discuss ordinances. And looks like I already have the early bird ordinance in effect right now. But if you wanted to change it to early bird, this is how you would do it, and you would pay 20,000 bells to change it. Also, if you have a large spike, it's worth it to change it to the night owl ordinance if you have it in PM, because that gives you an extra hour in the other way. But you have to do it the day before the spike. So if you change it in the morning, it's not going to come into effect until the next day. So make sure, if you know it's going to be a big spike in the PM, to change it the previous day instead of the current day, because it takes a full day for it to come into effect. And now we will go to the next day in the morning, and I'll see you for that spike. Okay, it's 7 AM. Time to check that AM price and see if we get a large spike. And there we have it. My resetting method for turnip spikes worked. We got 612 bells to turn up, which is not bad at all. So to go over the method one more time, if your week starts with a price of 90 something bells, it is worth going forward and checking those prices, because it's most likely either a large spike week or a decreasing week. If you get a decreasing week, go ahead and go to the next week and check those prices, because you're most likely to get a large spike week after a decreasing week. However, if you start off with something that's like 60 bells, that's most likely a small spike week, and you'll want to either time travel backwards several weeks or forward several weeks to reset that pattern. Because if it's either a small spike week or a fluctuating week, those 2 weeks will turn into kind of a cycle of going back and forth between those two, and it's worth it to reset then, instead of going forward forever and getting not good patterns. But if it's a large spike week, obviously you want that one, or if it's a decreasing week, go ahead and go forward to the next week. Other words, the reset method will save you a lot of time. I've been doing this for a long time, and I found that this method works the best. And for instance, just for an example, I've been recording for about 37 minutes total, and I've already gotten this price of 612 bells. If you have any questions in the comments, feel free to leave them there. If you want anything explained further, let me know. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope that gets you a lot of turnip spikes in the future. And I will see you again next Thursday for a new video. See you again. Bye-bye.